from my high school, Cathedral City, last June. It occupied 3,000 students in a school only meant to have a maximum capacity of 1,500. Now, not only did this overcrowding cause a huge safety problem, but it interfered with the classroom. But unfortunately, this isn't only occurring in my school, it's occurring also in Coachella Valley and throughout the nation, as schools are becoming overcrowded. So, however, there's been a solution being passed around since the 1990s which could help alleviate this problem, and that is the idea of school uniforms. So, today I would like to speak, I'd like to discuss not only the discipline problem that occurs in schools, but how the implementation of a student uniform policy could help alleviate these problems, and last, why it's so important for parents and schools to cooperate to enforce this policy. So, first I would like to speak about the discipline problem that occurs in schools on a daily basis. Every day students come to school and they disrupt classes with their clothing simply because either girls are wearing very scantily clad dresses or essentially they're very scantily clad dressed, or students are coming dressed as gangsters and fighting at school, or metal kids are simply causing the problem. I do believe that if you are what you wear, and most students do try to act out how they dressed. And the fact is a lot of kids can't buy the clothing that's really hip and trendy, so they get bullied. And in a lot of schools like Palm Springs, there's a lot of cliques that do have to deal with how much money you have. So that becomes a huge disruption in how you perform at school. Also, the clothes that students do wear is dangerous in itself because gangsters wear baggy clothing, in theory, to conceal weapons, and metal kids do wear those spike bracelets to injure other people during fights. And though schools do try to screen their students, they simply can't, in an overcrowded school especially, can't catch every student which is wearing, or they could be smuggling in weapons. And so, I would like to propose a solution to this problem, and that would be the implementation of a mandatory school uniform policy in schools that are, K through 12. And I believe that this could pose very beneficial results. In fact, David Bruchema wrote a book called The School Uniform Movement in 2004, in which he stated that if students came to school more professionally dressed, they would take their education more seriously. In the very first, I think that there's a lot of benefits toward this, and some of them could even be, they would help prevent gangs from forming, they would encourage discipline within the student body, help students resist peer pressure to buy trendy clothes, help identify intruders in schools, diminish the social and economic barriers between students, increase school spirit, and even improve attendance. The first school district, in fact, to gain recognition for their uniform policy was the Long Beach School District here in California. In 1994, they imposed a mandatory school uniform policy, and within 2 years reported a 76% drop in school violence. And I got that statistic off of familyeducation.com. In fact, they gained so much recognition that President Clinton, in his 1996 inaugural address, proposed that schools should be able to impose uniform policies if it would help students. In fact, he was reported by the New York Times stating that it would allow students to evaluate themselves more on what is on the inside rather than on the outside, then schools should be allowed to opt for student uniform policies. So, now that I've told you guys about my proposed solution, I would like to say the most important part of my plan, and that is the fact that both parents and schools need to cooperate together to enforce this policy. without their combined effort, the policy could end up failing. And in fact, most schools which do implement a student uniform policy will retract it within the next few years simply because students don't respect it. The first part of their plan has to be one to determine what is acceptable clothing for the uniform and what would be considered unacceptable. Second, they would need to suggest a proper date, which would give parents and students enough time to get their uniforms. So, and then the last part, which is the most important part of my plan, is that both entities need to enforce it within the home and also at school on a daily basis. Any lapses normally end up causing the school to become less strict on the dress code, and thus it'll fall through. And so, I would like to, in conclusion, reiterate some of my points. First, that discipline is a daily safety and a daily problem in public schools today. Second, how the implementation of a student uniform policy could create a better learning environment. And last, how it is so important that parents and schools cooperate together to enforce this policy. Now, while you all know that I went to Cathedral City High School, my other two schools were both uniform schools. And I do believe that it created a better and more positive environment to learning. And while I'm not saying that uniforms will solve all the issues that are in schools today, I am saying that it's a good step in the right direction. Thank you.